Hello there. You're welcome to a special edition of EsojayiludunTv Television, a lockdown edition, if I'll call it that. This week we'll be discussing leadership in the workplace. But I have a guest with whom that discussion will take place. It's not just me with you this week. This week, we'll be having an EsojayiludunTv television interview with Yemi Faseun, a professional HR practitioner. Mr. Yemi, you're welcome to this interview.
Thank you very much, SOJ. Pleasure to be here.
Now, who really is Yemi Faseun? You know, beyond your name, how would you respond to that often asked question, especially in this part of the world? Who are you?
Okay, so who am I? Let's put it this way. From a career perspective, let's say that I am someone who has migrated or transited from sales into marketing, and then about 22 years ago into the human resources profession. Worked across 10 organizations, including 3 banks, 1 telco, 1 big 4, and some other SMEs as well. I'm nomadic. From a career perspective, my friends call me a nomad. After about 12 months of saying hi to me, they see me. The next thing is, Yemi, are you still here or are you still there? And I'm like, oh, guys, give me a break now. It's not every year. So I've been a bit nomadic in my career. No regrets. I've learned. I've failed. I've learned. I've moved on. So like I said, it's been sales, marketing, and now HR. As a matter of fact, at some point while I was in HR, I went back into sales at Standard Chartered, and then quickly ran back to HR after a year. On a personal note, I like to describe myself as antisocial. Not too many people believe that.
Really?
Yes. Not too many people believe that. I have been on lockdown now for, I think mine even started before the official lockdown by the federal government. If I'm not at work or I'm not speaking at an HR conference or a leadership conference or something, this is my normal mode. So really, I've not missed anything. And because of what technology can allow us to do, I've been working at home anyway. So people do not believe that I'm antisocial. I promise you, so the last year I attended only 1 wedding event, only 1.
Interesting.
I can't remember the last time.
That's a new discovery to me as it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's what this is all about. Well, again, this week we're looking at leadership in the workplace. So how would you describe your leadership style?
I want to believe that my leadership style is collaborative. I do say that HR is not for nice people. So being collaborative does not mean that you allow everything to happen. You allow anything goes. No. Being collaborative means that there is a position that I hold in my team conversations. But if any member of my team comes up with something that is superior in terms of what we can do, and it is supported by data or facts or analogy or analysis, I'm happy to defer to the individual. But what I do not do is every time say to the team, what can we do? I have my own position on issues around the HR space, around the leadership space, around employee engagement, and all the stuff that we do on a daily basis. But if anybody in the team comes up with something and says, Yemi, I don't think this will work, I am always very open. That's 1. 2, I prefer empowerment to micromanaging people. And this is probably one of the areas I've gotten a feedback that maybe I over-delegate. This is feedback from people who have worked with me before, saying that, looks like, Yemi, you over-delegate. Because from my perspective, it is empowerment. But from their perspective, Yemi, we need you at times. Yes, you are empowered, but we need you to come in and all that, which is what I've taken as part of feedback in my career journey. But I want to believe that it's more collaborative than anything.
Now, you're an experienced HR professional, undoubtedly, but you've also occupied a series of leadership positions and still do in several instances. So what's your opinion on the place of leadership in organizational development and growth?
Okay, so I do a couple of write-ups on my LinkedIn page. And if I'm not writing about HR, usually I'm writing about leadership. For me, leadership is everything. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And for organizations to move from one level to another, the right sort of leadership must exist. And leadership is not in title or in the structure or in the hierarchy. It is leadership that is in tune with the organization itself, leadership that is in tune with investors or shareholders, and leadership that is in tune with employees. If we have leadership in the organization, I'll give you an example, for instance. Change is going on in an organization, and there is no leadership buy-in, there is no leadership sponsorship, and we don't have the leaders leading from the front. It's just going to be an exercise in futility. All we want to do is just tick the box and say we are doing change management. But if we have leaders who are leading the process itself as sponsors, as owners, then things become a bit easier. But the primary thing for me is that connection between a leader and the people he or she is leading. And that brings me to the 3 C's of leadership. I mean, there must be competence, there must be character, and of course, there must be charisma for the individual to be able to lead effectively in an organization.
Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting interview as it is, and I'm sure the growing Esojayiludun television followers will be getting a lot of value from your practical experience.
Sure.
Now, what values are most important to you as a leader?
The most important thing for me is professionalism. And I said that when younger colleagues come to me and they say, Yemi, oh, I just got another job, I'm going to resume on Monday or next week, what should I do? What I tend to say to them is that go in there first and foremost as a professional. I'm not saying that we're not going to make friends in the course of our business. Some friends, some colleagues will be friends, some will be family. And it is also professionalism that will allow me, for instance, to live the values of the organization that I represent. It is not in the understanding of those values because they are written somewhere on the walls or on my computer. Professionalism is first and foremost understanding why I am in that organization, have a professional relationship with everybody in the organization, and have a professional relationship with the organization itself to the extent where I am a role model of the values of the organization.
Thank you very much, Yemi. I'm aware that you're passionate about developing leaders and younger leaders as a mentor and as a coach. Is that what led to the formation of the YF Network? And can you throw a bit more light on what the YF Network is really all about?
Okay, thank you very much. So apparently you've been snooping on my pages.
Definitely. I'm one of those silent followers and admirers, and you're one of your people that are being coached and mentored informally. So thank you for all you do out there.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me put the YF context in perspective. I have about now, as of this morning, about 52,000 people following me on LinkedIn. And I get requests almost on a daily basis. Yemi, come be my mentor. And I don't say no to anyone. Not because I think I have the capacity, but I think that some people are looking for role models, not mentors, not coaches. They're just looking for a role model. And that opportunity exists because we are connected on LinkedIn, for instance. And also some of my colleagues in the HR field. But I realized that I can't be there for 52,000 people every day. Right. So I can be there for people when I hold the conferences and speak at engagements and all that. But I need a smaller group of people who will buy the vision of what YF stands for. And what do I stand for? I stand for mentoring the younger generation and lighting candles on their path so that they can become successful later in their careers or in the future. So I said to myself, I'm going to have a close community, and I'll call it the YF Network. The value proposition of the YF Network is basically around career conversations. It's around life conversations as well. It's around, if I go to conferences, I can say to Soji, I have a network. Can 5 people, since I'll be speaking at your conference or at your event, can 5 people from my network come benefit from that conversation? It also includes the fact that I am available to members of the network once every quarter to have a face-to-face conversation around anything, career, life, anything. they have an opportunity to sit with me once a quarter and have that conversation. And I'm saying also that it's an ecosystem of professionals, not just HR experts, an ecosystem of professionals. And what we are trying to do is not just the network that is hinged on just Yemi Faseun, but a network that is hinged on everyone. So I've got a sales director, for instance, in that network. I have a head of marketing and corporate communications in that network. I have a brand development manager in an insurance company in there, and I have other professionals. So the network is growing more and more outside of myself. But like I said, what I'm providing is an ecosystem for professionals to meet. But what guides our relationship in the network is basically career conversations.
My next question is, who would you say is your role model, mentor, or leader, and why? Just mention one, two, perhaps.
Okay, so this is an interesting one because really, I mean, everybody says they come be my mentor and all that. And that's because they have the benefit of availability of seniors, not just myself right now. When we were growing up, there were not many.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I mean, the GSM came in 2000. We had started our career before then. So really, the only mentors I had, right, growing up into my career were mentors I found in the books that I read. So Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, John Maxwell, Stephen Covey, Tony Robbins, those were the guys who really guided me along my journey, right? But is there somebody right now that I admire in terms of his outlook to career, outlook to life? I would say is Dr. Akin Oparisin of Lagos Business School. From a role model perspective, I've been following him for a long time. We're a bit close right now in terms of what we can do together, but he's been a phenomenal leader in the field of HR. So I'll say, yes, I admire him a lot. But when I was growing up, I had my mentors mostly in the books that I read.
Thank you very much. Now, what has been the biggest challenge you have had to contend with? And what lessons, if any, did you draw out of that experience? Career-wise,
Okay.
as a leader.
Okay. I think growing up in my career, I think the biggest challenge today that I can say I have struggled to deal with is organizational politics. It's been a struggle.
Remember, we had this discussion on some other webinar a few days back, right?
We did. At some point in my career, I was quite naive. I thought it was just go there. You know, I mentioned that be professional, just do your job and get out. Absolutely. But again, I realized that as you grow in your career, IQ and EQ will not be enough. Interestingly, by the time I realized that political quotient was also important, and which I called organizational awareness. By the time I realized that about, we're in 2020, by the time I realized this in 2010, it was almost costing me my job. So as we grow up the career ladder and we close the career triangle at the top, our level of organizational awareness must be very high and top-notch. It doesn't mean that if it is high and top-notch, you will always win. It doesn't mean that it will work for you, but you are less likely to be a victim if your PQ is very high. If it's not high and you think it's just go in there, do your job, and you are becoming a manager, you're becoming a senior manager, you're becoming a director, it won't work. I learned that very quickly. It was a big challenge for me, but then I quickly used that opportunity to add to my learnings as I grew up my career. But that was a major challenge for me at some point.
And I can tell you it's a deep insight and very, very relevant to those who will be listening to this interview, because many people are not aware of that. And the organizational awareness is actually relevant in any field of endeavor, whether you're in the armed forces, in religious places, even within the family. Those are some of the things that people usually just ignore to their own detriment and then blame everybody else for their situation rather than just get this understanding and life becomes a little better. Now, my last question for you today is, for someone who's just starting out on their career in whatever field or industry, what one thing would you advise that individual focuses on for them to have a smooth career path?
Okay, so Esojay, I'll quickly run through it because of time. I can't say one thing, but I have about 4 or 5 things that I'll say. The first thing I'll tell them is focus. Focus is very important. If you do not have a focus on where you're going, it's going to be a bit difficult for you to get there quickly. That's number 1. Number 2, I'll say to them, spend time in the future. The distractions of today are too many. We need to find time to take ourselves away from those distractions and go spend time in the future, because the future is going to happen again, like COVID-19 has happened. It's going to happen so quickly. And for those who are ready, it is an opportunity for them to leapfrog their career. For those who are not ready, because they are still stuck in the present, then they are caught in the middle. That's 2. Number 3, value. Value is so important. Don't go into any room until you're sure that you're going to place value on the table. And if you don't place value on any table, do not ask to take value away from any table. Value will always be important. And value is not in certifications, it's not in qualifications, it is in the advisory, it's in the conversations that we bring to the business to solve problems. For me, that's value. So if you do not bring value, don't ask for value. Number 4, change. Change will always happen. Get ready for change. Anybody who has not read Who Moved My Cheese, this is the right time to read that book. Anybody who has read it before, this is the right time to refresh. Risk. Take risks. Because again, if you don't take risks, that itself is risky. At some point in my career, I left Arthur Anderson to join Vic Lawrence. At some point, I left Standard Chartered to join People Temp. And I mean, those were risky moments. But if I have to live my life all over again, honestly, no regrets. Every single dot has added up till this moment if I look backwards. So don't just sit down and expect that things will happen. There is a role for the individual to play to make sure that the future that you envisage actually happens. And lastly, be positive. Generally, I'm a positive person. Despite COVID-19, I'm thinking Monday next week, or maybe by Friday, we are going to all be back in the office. It might be, it might not be, but just be generally positive. Somebody said that you have 60,000 thoughts going through your mind every day. At least make 80% of them positive. And it is only what we ask from life that life gives to us in return. Thank you.
What a way to end it all. It's only what we ask of life that life returns to us.
Absolutely.
The way I like to stretch that same statement in another way is the way the world is, it's like a closed door. And that door always is waiting for the courageous person to approach and just turn the doorknob. Then the door opens. Once that person goes through, the door shuts back again, waiting for that next person to take that plunge. Thank you very much for your time today. It's really been awesome. It's really been awesome. And
thank you.
If the viewers of Esojayiludun Television would like to contact you, can you please just quickly share? It's going to be scrolling on the screen. What is the best way to contact you?
Okay, so I'm not hiding my identity. On LinkedIn, I am Yemi Faseun. On Facebook as well, I am Yemi Faseun. On Instagram, I am Yemi Faseun. On Twitter, I am Faseun Yemi, because somebody has stolen Yemi Faseun before I registered on Twitter. So I had to do Faseun Yemi.
Thank you very much. And again, the viewers of Esojayiludun Television every week, I thank you for your continuing followership and the comments, the feedbacks I get every week. And then also drop a comment, a feedback, whatever it is. Until next week again, I thank you for watching.